We need to be sure that this can never happen again.
People here, we all believe science. We all trust science. It's not about that.
Yeah.
We're against Trudeau. We're against tyranny. We want to be free. It's our bodies, our choice. That term doesn't get to change just because the narrative changes.
You still have to get a vaccine in order to have able to go to work and able to travel. There's still a lot of pressure for people who aren't convinced about why that's important. So you know what? Although on the surface it feels like we're kind of free, and we are, there's still several people or groups, if you want to call them, that are still getting pressured to do that. And I don't think that's fair.
So we're seeing a significant counter-protest here. Police have effectively set up a barricade. So what exactly is it that you're counter-protesting here?
I support the right to protest. That is at the heart of any democracy. That being said, we need to keep our society safe. Public health measures are a means of doing that.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News, and we are once again at the Calgary Freedom Rally here in Central Memorial Park, where hundreds are once again gathered. I want to take just a moment to pause and reflect on the fact that week after week, hundreds and indeed thousands of people have been standing in solidarity together in what is very likely one of the largest civil rights movements in Canadian history. We have never seen so many cities standing so many weekends, week after week, for their freedom, standing in unity and standing for each other. These people are protesting, demanding a permanent end to mandates and an end to all the restrictions from COVID-19 that have done so much harm to society.
And this is my warning to these so-called leaders. Leave our children alone.
So there is a pretty clear sentiment among the people here that temporary lifts of mandates and restrictions aren't enough. There's always this threat that they will return those half promises. What is the impression you're gathering from people here? What do they want for these protests to come to an end?
We need to be sure that this can never happen again. We need our elected officials to vote into law restrictions on their abilities to impose these non-pharmaceutical interventions.
Well, I can't speak for the rest of these people. I can only speak for myself. But I want freedom. I want this to end. I want it never to be instigated again, because I'm free and they have no right to tell me what to do.
Total freedom. No government controls, no vaccine mandates, no government controlling bank accounts for trying to keep the country free. It's all about the freedom.
Freedom. It's not about the vaccine. People here, we all believe science. We all trust science. It's not about that.
Yeah.
We're against Trudeau. We're against tyranny. We want to be free. It's our bodies, our choice. That term doesn't get to change just because the narrative changes.
You still have to get a vaccine in order to have able to go to work and able to travel. There's still a lot of pressure for people who aren't convinced about why that's important. So you know what? Although on the surface it feels like we're kind of free, and we are, there's still several people or groups, if you want to call them, that are still getting pressured to do that. And I don't think that's fair, because they just want to have a conversation about it. They want some more information before they do it. But so many people got forced after Christmas, if they were in healthcare or if they were in travel industries or if they worked for the government, to get vaccinated without question. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. That's why we're here.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to want to end the protests until everything's guaranteed that it's not going to reopen. Like even in Alberta, we don't trust the premier.
Yeah.
We want our freedom. We want our right to choose. We want our lives back. This is a free country. What we're doing is beyond wrong. We want freedom. Freedom to live our lives the way that we see fit.
Well, we're fighting for bodily autonomy, and we know these things are going to come back. Like, they're not done with them, and these governments got to go, all of them. You know, there's not one premier, there's not one federal government that's on our side. And we need to keep fighting for that. Get them all out.
Well, folks here are speaking about this as a great awakening. The people here not simply being placated by the fact that some mandates and restrictions are being dropped. They want assurances that these restrictions and mandates are gone for good. They're also calling for an end to the keeping of political prisoners like Pastor Archer Pawlowski, who are being held simply for questioning their narrative. So are you attending the protest or did you just stumble upon it?
We are waiting for a friend down the line. We've been here 1 week before and now we're back again.
So what is it that you want? What are you fighting for? What are you protesting?
Well, we are both musicians and have lost a lot of work over the past year to do these mandates. And we have a 7-month-old baby. I was pregnant when the vaccine came out. And we just basically want people to have control over their medical choices again. So that's what we're here for.
For the first time in effectively the 2 years that these protests have been taking place, we're seeing a significant counter-protest here. Police have effectively set up a barricade, preventing the protesters from interacting. I'm going to try and speak with some of the counter-protesters to see what their perspective is. Would you guys like to say at all how you're counter-protesting or what you're standing for? Sure, yeah. So what exactly is it that you're counter-protesting here?
I support the right to protest. That is at the heart of any democracy. That being said, we need to keep our society safe. Public health measures are a means of doing that.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay.
Did you want to say something? No. Does anyone want to say why you're... Like, we're happy to include your perspective.
We're saying, just sign?
So it's incredibly interesting. The last few weeks we've attended these protests, we have seen the public opinion on the sides of streets shift. People have been clapping and cheering in roadside cafes and bars. This week it's interesting. It's almost as though while society begins to shift, while the perspectives begin to change, the more radical people out there, some of the activists, some of the counter-protesters, can sense that there's a shift taking place. And so they, for the first time today, are out in numbers counter-protesting. As society begins to open up, as society begins to become more free, they want us locked down once again. And what do you make of, for the first time really in some time, we're seeing counter-protesters seemingly wanting things locked down? What do you make of them?
I think they're paid. I mean, they're not. Who can be anti-freedom? Honestly, like, to me, I don't really care how you want to live your life. Whether, however you want to live your life is your right to choose. Honestly, I don't think that I think they're just paid to be here, paid to slander us. I mean, this is a peaceful group. Everybody's happy. We're singing. We're having a great time.
Last week we spoke with your family. You were in Ottawa with the convoy. You are now back here. What was the experience like?
Like nothing I've ever been a part of in my life. Just the energy, the unity, the love, just the way everybody was coming together, and we needed it for the longest time. So it was unbelievable. I was riding that high for days after I got home.
And we've seen the Emergencies Act dropped, some of these other measures dropped, but lots of it, there's sort of ifs and buts languages that suggests it might come back.
Well,
what do you think of that?
Well, what I've been hearing is they dropped it, but they only dropped specific portions of it. So it might be dropped, yeah, but the fact is they can still freeze our bank accounts and all that stuff, so it doesn't really make a difference.
We're seeing week after week, thousands and thousands of people coming, standing in solidarity. In your lifetime, have you ever seen a movement like this for civil liberties, a movement where so many people have come together in Canada?
Never. No, never. I started coming here about a year ago, and it's grown like crazy.
We love you! We love you! Woo!
Well, the Emergencies Act, for the time being, has been revoked. Mandates and restrictions are also being revoked, but people continue to demand their freedoms long term, and these people are not going to desist in their protests until those freedoms are guaranteed for the long term. These people will continue to march for their freedoms. As always, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Sos. If you agree with the hundreds of people who are standing behind me in opposition to vaccine mandates, you can help our legal challenge against vaccine passport systems in Canada by going to fightvaccinepassports.com. Any donations you make at that website go to the Democracy Fund, which is a registered Canadian charity, so you'll receive a tax receipt for your valuable contribution to the fight for freedom.